The Texas Attorney General, Greg Abbott, doesn't hesitate to take on the establishment, and that's helped make him a hero to conservatives, not only in Texas, but across the country. He's also become a role model for another group of people, the disabled. As Paul Strand reports, life in a wheelchair for the last 3 decades hasn't stopped Abbott from blazing an impressive trail.
Governor Rick Perry may be Texas's most well-known politician, but his attorney general is making a name for himself as well. But while Perry goes in front of television cameras, Greg Abbott goes to court. His target of late, the Obama administration, suing it 29 times.
State attorneys general can hold their federal government accountable when they overreach, when they intrude into our liberties, and when they crush the Constitution.
He quips about his job. I go into the office, I sue the federal government, and I go home. His main fight put him with 25 other state attorney generals against Obamacare. He says he did it in the name of liberty and the Constitution, like protesters he saw outside the U.S. Supreme Court.
They're letting the Supreme Court know that a majority of Americans not only believe that Obamacare is wrong, but a majority of Americans actually believe that Obamacare is unconstitutional.
To Abbott, it's all about being faithful to the U.S. Constitution, a document he believes is based not on men's ideas, but eternal, immutable truth.
Certain founding fundamental principles that have caused it to be the greatest country in the world. And these are principles that pass the test of time and will exist always.
And it's all about being true to the God this preacher's grandchild says he's known since he was a little boy.
Faith has been a part of my life since the earliest times I can remember.
Abbott needed that faith like never before when he had a horrible encounter in 1984.
I was out jogging one day and a big 80-foot oak tree fell on me, hit me in the back, fractured my vertebrae and my spinal cord, leaving me instantly and forever paralyzed, needing to use a wheelchair.
Abbott says Texans are generally can-do, positive people of faith, and that's one of the reasons this lifelong Texan spent little time questioning God and asking, why me?
That question may have arisen for a day or for an hour, but really no longer than that. And the reason why those questions didn't linger really is because of my faith, because I've always been one who believed that God has a pathway forward for us. And frankly, it's one of those times when I leaned on God, leaned on my faith more than ever before, and was literally pulled up, pulled forward, moved onward because of the role that God played in my life during that challenging time.
30 years later, Abbott chats freely about his disability, even joking about it. He says some politicians will talk about having a steel spine, while he actually has one. But on the serious side, this former Texas Supreme Court justice points out Texans have never held the wheelchair against him.
It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your situation is. If you bring to the table a can-do spirit, such as it doesn't matter that I'm in a wheelchair, I can be a judge, or I can be attorney general, or I can be whatever I want to be. Texans are welcoming of that attitude.
The Attorney General says Texans believe so strongly in the God of liberty, they strongly backed Abbott's successful defense of this monument to the 10 Commandments at the state capitol, a case that put him before the U.S. Supreme Court.
Everyone understands the role that God plays in our life, and that's why we are able to vigorously defend things like the 10 Commandments and have the general public strongly support things like that.
That love of liberty also pushes Abbott to get around on his own as much as possible, often surprising people as he drives around Austin in a car that's all hand-controlled.
One thing I really cherish is my independence, not just fighting for independence in the legal system, but my own independence. You know, we as Texans, and I think Americans, are an independent people.
This politician quickly points out, though, that just driving Texas roads is good enough for him.
I have no eye on Washington. I have my eye on making Texas as great of a state as it can be.
But he insists Texas is such an example of what is best about America, it must continue to be deeply involved in the great issues facing the nation.
And what Texas is trying to do is to stand on the principles of independence, of liberty, of constitutional principles and faith, and expand that ideology to other states.
Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Austin, Texas.
Boy, he would make a great candidate for up the line. You know, Franklin Roosevelt, had polio, and it didn't keep him from being a 4-time president. He just stayed in, and some people didn't know any other president except Franklin Roosevelt. So Greg Abbott has got quite a career ahead of him.
He was very inspiring. You can definitely see him moving up to higher
Well,
office.
he wants to move up to be governor, so we'll see what happens. All right.